Just reviewing Florida State. Again, it was what I thought it was after the game. I thought our kids prepared well, gave great effort, got off to a great start. A couple of big plays there in the first half, allowed it to become 21-10, and then they scored right away in the second half. And then after that, I thought our kids played hard. Didn't quit. We had some great efforts on film. We're not executing at a high enough level. Right now our pass defense is not very good, and I mean all aspects of it. We're not rushing the passer well. We're not getting a lot of quarterback pressures. We're not getting a lot of sacks. That has to get better. When a quarterback has time, he's going to find open guys, but then once you complete the balls, the amount of yards that we gave up after missed tackles really hurt us. And it would have been worse. Justin Sternad made a heck of a hustle play on that one play to prevent a touchdown. Again, and I thought Florida State's defensive line played really well. That was probably the worst game that we've played on the O-line here in 2 years. Sam, at times I thought he missed throws, but at times was really getting pressured early, and there was a lot of penetration in the pocket. And, he wasn't perfect, but at times it was hard for him to execute. He just didn't have a lot of time, and then he made some pocket decisions that made the problems worse. You can't run backwards against the Clemsons and Florida States and the Notre Dames of the world. 5-yard losses become 12-yard losses. So moving forward to Louisville, again, looking forward to head up there. I think they're another team similar to Florida State, going through a little bit of a transition in terms of a new quarterback. They're younger on defense with a new coordinator. I think there's some similarities right now in both programs. And I think their last few games they've played better. They really had the Florida State game won. They have the lead with some minutes left, and they're down in the red zone against Florida State, and they throw a pick, and Florida State comes back and makes some plays to win the game. And then the BC game was a very competitive game. That was 24-20 in the fourth quarter. So I think they're playing much better. As always, they're extremely talented. Their collection of skill has always been among the best in our conference. I think this year is no different. And on defensively, they're always big up front, athletic. So we're going to have to go up there and play a good game. I think both programs right now really need wins. We certainly feel that way, and I'm sure they do as well. So, again, we're looking forward to get up there and, hopefully be a very competitive football game that, whoever takes care of the football and makes the most plays will win. That's it.
I know every week is its own season, but, talking to Ryan Anderson earlier, it was kind of, we don't use the term must-win game, but if ever we were to use it, it would be for this week.
Yeah, I mean, you get to a point in your season that you have goals, and the longer you go on and not winning a close game at BC, not finding a way to capitalize up at Florida State, some of your goals start disappearing. We're not going to win the ACC Atlantic. We're not going to be playing in the ACC championship game that year. That disappeared with losing to Clemson probably. Every year we have goals, and our goals are to be in the ACC championship game, to be in a bowl game, to have a winning season. And I mean, our players are smart. They know the numbers, and we need to get a win in order to keep some of those goals alive. And mathematically, they're certainly not dead, but we're not playing well enough right now to win games, and we just need to go up there and execute and play well and find a way to win a football game. But you never, must win. I mean, if you don't win, nobody's going to die, or nobody's going to, but competitively to reach your goals, this is an extremely important, and it would have been no matter what your goals. But we're still 5 games left, and we're sitting at 3 wins, and there's a path to be playing in December, but that path will get narrower if you don't find a way to win.
Coach, you mentioned Louisville's big athletic defensive front. They're also a defensive line that hasn't created a lot of production. Are you hoping that this is a game in which maybe your offensive line can kind of get their feet underneath them and give a good pocket for Sam Hartman before he gets some things done?
Yeah, I mean, we need to, and we need to do that every week. I mean, you know, I always analyze our numbers and our offense and make comparisons. And I mean, would it surprise you if I told you after 7 games that right now this year's offense is more productive than last year's? We've scored more points and we have more yards. And, you know, statistically that's true. It doesn't feel like it, but we've scored more points after 7 games right now than we did a year ago, and we have more total offense. But it's taken us 124 plays more to do it. So what sticks out is we're just not making as many big plays. And we're making as many big plays at the slot. We're making as many big plays at tailback. The production from the outside receivers isn't what it was a year ago. And I think there's many reasons for that. I think, you know, some of those routes on the outside are more timing routes and feel routes. And when you're breaking in a freshman quarterback, I don't think Sam has the same feeling for that as John had, but I think it's getting better. We haven't been healthy out there. You know, Scotty obviously hasn't been healthy, and Bachman had a hamstring and then was nursing a knee, and Sage had a groin issue. You know, and those guys are now healthy, but throughout the year they haven't been. And, you know, we're not protecting as well as we did a year ago. We don't have as much time for those guys to get open. And I just think those are the things that we've got to protect a little better. We've got to get open a little more, and we've got to throw it on time. And that to me, is the aspect of our offense that's missing from where we were a year ago moving forward. Now, the second half of last year, we kind of exploded on offense, and I'm hoping we do the same this year. At this point a year ago, you know, our best games were ahead of us, and hopefully we can do that again. But we've got to throw the ball better. We're not throwing it for a high completion percentage. We're not throwing it efficiently. We're running the ball really well, but because we're not throwing it as well, those run boxes are getting a little tighter and a little tougher.
Is it just me, or is those long outside routes from Sam right now just a hair off? I mean, are they close?
Yeah, they're close. You know, that was something we didn't do well in 16, and then suddenly in 17 we got really good at. Last year, at the outside receiver positions, we made, I believe, 15 plays over 30 yards. And half of those were Scotty, and the other half were, you know, Alex and Chuck. And this year, that production out there isn't nearly the same. And again, I think part of it is that Scotty hasn't been healthy. Last week is the best he felt. He looked good today. Hopefully that's on an incline. The more he practices with Sam, I think that'll only get better. You know, Alex Bachman to me is now healthy. I think Sage is getting healthier. All those things should help it. But we've got to hold up a little better in protection too. That, you know, it's not always the sacks. It's the amount of time that the quarterback can take his drop, get off his first read, and have time to get to that second read. And at times, you know, we're getting pushed out of the pocket. And then there's times the pocket's there, and he's not trusting it. So that's really a twofold problem.
How did Luke hold up on tape?
Luke Masterson played really, really well. I mean, just incredibly well, given all the circumstances. You've never played linebacker. You find out on Wednesday the starting middle linebacker is out sick. So you change positions on Wednesday. You get one full practice doing it, and then you play a full game, and he was really productive. I mean, just played really well. Wasn't perfect, you know, had some MAs, but not nearly as many as you'd expect. I mean, it was really, everything considered, he did a really good job.
You mentioned the health of some receivers. What about Greg? He looked like he was pretty limited.
He was limited. He'll be full go this week. That he missed the bye week. He had very limited practice last week. he played more than we initially wanted him to. But we did not want to play him the full game. We didn't want him returning. You know, he was probably 80%. And but the good news is I thought Ja'Cory Roberson played really well. So that's exciting. If you know we could ever get to a point that we rotate him in there regularly and give Greg a break, and now we're developing another receiver, that would be a positive for us.
Is Kendall still in the mix there? Is he?
Yeah, we just got to see if he's going to be healthy or not. So he did a little bit today, not a lot. So, I mean, I'd love to have all these problems of having all these players and not enough reps, but we just have not been able to stay healthy at any of those spots. So we're constantly moving guys from receiver to quarterback, from safety to linebacker, and you know, just we haven't been able to establish our depth at any position really.
When you say full go, does that include kick and punt returning for Greg, likely?
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I mean, I don't see why he wouldn't.
And then when you talked about not having the depth at these, being able to develop the depth of these positions like you had envisioned, how does that impact practice? Are you still able to practice
no,
like you normally would?
No, we're not. I mean, we've had to really adjust and adapt our practices compared to what we did a year ago. I mean, we have to do more what I call wake versus wake. That, you know, usually you like to do, I don't know, 24 minutes to 28 minutes a day of scout team, and we can't do that. We don't have enough depth to have a scout team. So we're doing a lot more wake versus wake that will go against each other, or the first offense will go against the second defense, and our defense will do something that we do that somewhat replicates what the opponent does, and then we do the same thing on offense. So your twos are still getting plays, but they're not necessarily getting plays against what they're going to face that week. But we just, I mean, I've had to do this maybe one or two other times in my career that we just don't have the practice numbers to say we're going to scout teams and preparing looks. But you can still get good practice that way, and the quality of reps is actually better. And there's a lot of teams that go through the season and have to do this.
Do you limit contact a little
Yes.
bit more than you
Yes, you have
would?
to. You have to. You're at the point you can't lose anybody else. You know, and a lot of this at certain positions, Les, just has to do with how we run the program. I mean, we are very much a school that likes to recruit and develop. And I do not want to get, like, if you have a freshman that is not ready to play, I don't want to play him. If he's not going to help us win, I don't want to lose the red shirt. I mean, could you imagine if we didn't have Phil Haynes or Ryan Anderson now, or Patrick Osterhage now, or, I mean, and certainly 4 years ago there was a temptation to play those guys, but if we played them, we wouldn't have those guys now. And so if a player can help us win like Ryan Smenda, and he helps with the depth, we'll play him. If a player isn't going to help us win and isn't ready to play, we don't want to blow the red shirt year and lose them. And so this is like the last game that we got to get through, because then you have 4 left. And now you can start getting those guys into the special teams and into the depth. But the reality of it is a lot of these freshmen, even though they can play, aren't ready to play. And again, that's just not how we do things. We don't get a lot of players that are ready-made. We get players that we project will get there in 2 or 3 years. And we've probably gotten a few more players that are ready-made, but the bulk of them aren't. The bulk of them are not ready to play in an ACC football game right now and help us win. So there's guys at corner and at safety that they're not ready.
Earlier today, Coach Cade Carney said that.
Coach Cade Carney, did he just get promoted? I would not be shocked someday.
Coach Clawson.
Hopefully not too soon.
Cade said earlier today that looking on film, it really showed against Florida State that football is a game of inches, in the sense that you were really close to executing some big plays. What's something you've seen on film that you're a little more optimistic about next week against Louisville?
I mean, I'm just optimistic about how our kids worked last week and their preparation and their effort in the game and the amount of what we call losses, lack of swarming was much, much lower. You know, the catch Scotty Washington had one-handed, you know, seeing Greg out there. I mean, Sam Hartman didn't throw for a high percentage, but he's a tough kid. I mean, he got hit and got at times the you-know-what knocked out of him, and he'd come right back the next play, and here we go. I mean, you know, there's some toughness and some backbone to that kid that, you know, those are the things that I love seeing. I thought Matt Colburn played really well. Nate Gillum played probably his best game in a month. Zeke Rodney is playing the best football he's ever played here. Justin Strnad was all over the field. I mean, there was a lot of positives from that game. We're not happy with the result. And again, it is a bottom line business. But there were things in that game and last week in practice that if you are process driven, which we are, will eventually lead to winning football games.
Speaking of Matt, I know it's 4 years removed, but does this game for him, do you get the sense that it still holds a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even go there. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how, does it motivate him internally? Maybe. I'm not ever going to bring stuff like that up. To me, I keep the focus on our football team and getting us better. And, you know, I'm sure that's something that if you asked him, he'd have a different answer. But, I mean, to me, I'm glad it happened. We got him here.
I'm working on a story about Eric Osteen.
Mm-hmm.
When I talked to him, he had mentioned that he came into your office, I think it was in May, and said he wanted to try out. I don't know how 28-year-olds walk in your office and say they want to try out, but
If that's a question, once.
Yeah, okay. What do you remember from that meeting and as far as like what entailed the tryout process? And then just to follow up, what has Eric then brought to the team? You know, elder statesman kind of role, or you know, what is having him provide?
Well, I mean, the tryout process was just, you can join us in our summer program, and we have the same expectations of you, of everybody, about attendance and lifting. And you know, we had watched some of his film from Army, so there really was no tryout. As long as he showed up, that we had room on the roster, we were going to let him compete for the kickoff job. And I think more than anything, it was just his self-confidence, his maturity level. You know, some kids get it. And here's a guy that as a captain was in charge of more than a whole football team. So you would argue I was talking with somebody who, in the not too recent past, had more responsibility for a more important job than I have. And so we just started talking. It was a real easy conversation. We started talking about leadership and how we run the program and how he ran his unit and what things did he learn leadership-wise. And he's married, he's getting his MBA. He's just, he's a grown man. And he's really a great addition to our football team.